Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a chiropractic student connection out in Palmer, Florida, with soon-to-be Dr. Luis Medina. Can you kind of introduce yourself, Luis, and share a little bit about where you were at in life when you decided you want to become a chiropractor?
Yes, sir. So, just like you said, my name is Louis, born and raised in, I was born in Honduras, but I moved to South Florida, like the Fort Lauderdale area, when I was about like 2 years old. So, I was born and raised essentially in South Florida. And it was around, man, I went to school. My undergrad was in UCF in Orlando. So, for me, it was around my sophomore year of, not junior year of undergrad where because I think like a lot of chiropractic students, I kind of wanted to go like the physical therapy route for a while, and then I was kind of like doing some research. I did a couple shadowing and whatnot, and then it wasn't until I took a class called Human Injuries and Prevention with Dr. Daniel Warner. He's a chiropractor in Orlando, and he really kind of planted the seed and put it in my field, like the beauty and the just the potency of chiropractic. So it was around that time where I was probably like around 19, 20 when that happened. And then that really just planted the seed. I started doing more research on that route and actually started shadowing a lot of chiropractors. And I was like, man, like this is more for me. So that was really when it first started.
All right, what was it about chiropractic that was more for you? Obviously, you didn't grow up in a chiropractic
Mm-hmm.
family, you didn't grow up in a chiropractic community. What was it about chiropractic at 19 after shadowing these chiropractors? Like, what was coming up for you that you could see was possible as becoming a chiropractor? Like, what was it about it?
So for me personally, at least like some of the experiences I had shadowing some like physical therapists and whatnot, and don't get me wrong, I think the world needs a lot of PTs. They're absolutely amazing. But for me, it was almost just like when I started to shadow chiropractors, it was more like just a lot more hands-on experience. I felt like they were much more like they were really just touching every patient every single second of the time that they were with them, and it was just almost more like of a connecting factor for me that I got to see and just to really be, I guess, like really part of their like healing journey and getting through a lot of those traumas, physical, mental, spiritual, whatever it is that these people were going through, really, and to be able to see these Kairos kind of just tap into that and really just be super hands on with them at every moment of the way. That was what really drew me in, and I like that, I like a lot more like a fast pace. Like I want to be like very involved in people's lives and do the best I can to help them. So that's what really just separated the two. And then I started actually getting my first ever chiropractic care from a car accident I was actually in, and just to see how amazing results it gave me and how quickly I started to just feel better in my own body. I was like, man, this is the route I need to go. So that's what did it for me.
Can you reflect on even before that moment that you decided you want to become a chiropractor? Like, what was it about your path that was really molding and shaping you in that direction that you might even be potentially able to just not even have to pivot that hard, but still keep going in the direction you were already going? Like, where were you at in high school, middle school, and early college when you decided this was going to be like you helping people? Like, what was it that inspired you to even go in that direction in the first place? And then the second part of that is like, when you decided you want to become a chiropractor, what did you do to prepare for chiropractic school?
So for me, I always, I was always very, I guess, intrigued by just the realm of just like, of course, like athletes and rehab and how like the human body can work, how amazing it is, how much we still don't know about it, and how much we do know about it. So I always knew I wanted to be in a profession where I could help someone just live the best possible life that they could. So that's why I was like, man, I kind of want to do like the PT route. I just somehow wanted to be involved in someone's health and someone's well-being, and like how can I make someone become the best version of themselves in that way. So that's kind of like I always was in that realm. But just like it's like I was like everyone in my family, there's no chiropractors, there's no physical, there's really no like healthcare providers, you could even say, in my family name ever. But I always knew that. I feel like I've always had a passion to. I'm like a very like empathetic person as well, and I feel like I always wanted that. I always had that passion to kind of just like really just want to help people. Because even like growing up, I remember in middle school, high school, I was someone that would kind of like always put people, even like before myself, where I was always there to like help someone get through something. I was always there to try and encourage somebody, whatever the case may be that they were going through. So I felt like I was always kind of like in that field of like, okay, where is this going to kind of lead me to? And then it wasn't until until I experienced chiropractic firsthand and got to see it, and then that's when I was like, oh, okay, like this is where I want to go. Um, and then preparing for chiropractic school, honestly, once I knew that was the route I was gonna go. It was my senior year. So at UCF, they have like the option of like it's called like capstone, if I'm not mistaken. It's essentially you get to either take a these last bit of courses before you graduate, or you can actually shadow under a chiropractor. And that Dr. Daniel Warner, who was actually one of my professors previously in a few semesters before that, I got the chance to shadow him, well, really intern with him for about a few months, and to really see just like how he was able to connect to his patients, and how like just seeing like just the potency of chiropractic. I remember you would see people have emotional releases. You'd see people be so like, wow, like getting their first adjustment. It was almost just like the lights came on in their eyes, and it was beautiful to watch. So for me to prepare him, he was really he took me kind of like under his wing, and he was giving me a lot of like, you should start like just do this, kind of like he was already telling me like, man, like start knowing the anatomy of the spine already, because you're gonna get hit with it quarter one at Palmer, Florida, because he went to Palmer, Florida as well. So what I honestly started to prepare myself to, I just did a lot of just like mindfulness practice too. I really started to just like envision myself like, okay, like this is where I'm gonna go. Like, how can I become the best chiropractic student and best chiropractor that I could possibly be? So I always set that intention, and then because I graduated UCF at 2019 and I started Palmer in 2020, so there was like not even a gap in between the
Hmm.
two of a break or anything. So honestly, for me, it was just more of getting my mind mentally ready, and just being ready to like, okay, like I'm gonna get all these classes thrown at me. I already had the schedule popped up. I'm like, how can I get ready to study and all this stuff? Which I knew it was gonna be a lot, especially in the quarter system. But it was more of
Yeah.
just like getting my mind mentally prepared and putting myself in that field of just like, okay, like this is where we're going. So we're ready.
Hmm. All right, let's talk about that transition. Was it hard to get into school? What was the admissions process like? And then once you actually got to the campus, how was that transition for you? Was it easy to adapt? What were some struggles you might have had, or challenges you've seen other students having, or surprises that you encountered?
So for me, the admission was honestly was very, it was very chill in the sense that like when I remember the counselors here at Palmer, they were very like attentive to you. So anytime I had a questions, they were very quick to answer. They gave me like the breakdown of like, look, this is going to be your schedule for quarter one. These are all the classes. And then prior to that, and when I was in junior in undergrad, I already knew like, okay, like I have these classes already take. There were some like prerequisites classes of sciences that I needed to take. So once I already knew I was going to go to Palmer, I just ended up taking those at the community college while still going to UCF, getting the credit for those. And then once I got approved for that, everything else was basically just set in stone with the, because I have a degree in exercise science. And so a lot of the classes that we needed for Palmer was already in that curriculum in anyways to get the bachelor's. So there's only I think a couple maybe like chemistry two, and some anatomy courses that I hadn't taken, that I took a few months before graduating, or even I think close to a year before. And then once I got that, everything was set. And well, the good thing about it was that Palmer, Florida, here there's a lot of like dinners for Palmer to like sponsor Palmer and kind of like just talk about what chiropractic is, what how Palmer is. So they would have those at a restaurant near UCF. So I would also go to those, and those were also very helpful. When I actually got here to Palmer, Florida, my biggest thing that I had to adapt to was the, because I kind of knew like, okay, there's going to be a lot of classes going on, but the actual workload was more than I expected, because it is a little bit of a jump from, going from an undergraduate program to a doctorate program. So that was my biggest thing that I would say was the biggest, I guess, like hurdle to get over. It was kind of just like knowing, okay, like what are my best study habits, what are my best, how am I going to go about like really time managing these classes so that I could, pass them, do well, and then just continue on and not have to ever worry about like, man, am I gonna not do well on this exam, am I going to retake this? So I really just set that intention, like, okay, like I'm going to set these amount of times for this class, this amount of time for this class, and it was more about a time management thing. And so that's really what I did to prepare myself. I would say some of the things I've seen in other students was because of that workload, especially in a quarter program, that it is a lot. I noticed that people that were kind of out of school for a while, and they kind of had like jobs post undergrad, and they were kind of doing their thing, and they say, you know what, I'm going to become a chiropractor and go back to school. I have noticed that a lot of those kind of students were having a little bit of an issue kind of grasping like the workload as well. So that was the biggest hurdle that I saw, honestly. And overall, it was just really just adapting to the program because of how fast paced it is. Because it's essentially 10 weeks, and by week 11, you're already taking all your finals, and then you're back at it again. So I think that's
Can
definitely
you
the
talk
big.
a little bit about your own personal time management and study habits that you can maybe help just share some insights with any other students?
Yeah. So for me personally, I was always someone that would like to kind of wait for the weekends, and I would kind of like, okay, like my weekends are going to be like the time to just like grind out, let's say 4 or 5 hours Saturday, a few hours Sunday, and kind of just go about it that way. And I still do that, especially now in the later part, because I really only have until December, and then I go off to preceptor, and then I'll be graduated. So I would say, but for me, though, once I started to realize how much the workload was, I started to be like, okay, like I can wait for the weekend. And that's okay to do some classes. But I honestly just said, look, man, if I can just set an hour to an hour and a half, max 2 hours every day after school to just sit down and just read or watch some chiropractic videos and everything like that, that was going to be enough. And it ended up being just that. For me, it was a little bit interesting though, especially with like because of the COVID era, I got hit with that essentially in the very start. Well, it was as the very end of quarter 1 is when COVID started. So then it was like a weird transition period going to online. But essentially, the work kind of like stayed the same. I always made sure to at least prioritize just about an hour or so, just every day. And I noticed that that was enough for me, especially because you're gonna get some courses when you're gonna be like, man, like this is kind of annoying. Like I don't know, this is just like biochemistry is not my strong suit, right? So it was kind of like one of those weird things. But one recommendation I make to all like the younger quarters here, especially, is I was like, look, whenever you start to get frustrated with like some sort of class, always come back to your why, and always in the sense that for me, I would always watch, for example, like chiropractic adjusting videos as like because I love it. Like I'm super passionate for the art by far. So for me, I always tell the younger quarters like, look, whenever you start to get frustrated, take some time off, like take a quick pause from your studying and pull up some YouTube videos, pull up some awesome chiros that you follow, watch some adjusting videos, and really like reignite that fire and that passion inside you. Because sometimes in the program, it does. I can see how a lot of people can kind of get that fire starts to just diminish over time when you start to take some of the classes and you're like, fuck, well, this kind of just, man, it's tough, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
that's my, and until this day, whenever I do like a workshop around school for like setups, or whenever I'm doing something, I always say, hey guys, like one, don't ever compare yourself to anybody. And two, just always come back to that passion and do something like truly chiropractic related. If not every day, at least weekly, a few times, just to always bring you back to like center and ground yourself. Like, okay, like that's where I want to be. Let me just get past these courses, and then I'll be there.
Can you get specific with some of the resources that you tap into on a regular basis, either now or in the past, reflecting back, whether it's YouTube channels, social media channels, whether it's actually like looking at seminar notes or
Yeah.
videos that you filmed when you were at seminars, or
Yeah.
having conversations with chiropractors, or having conversations with other chiropractic students about seminars you went to, or having conversations with potentially yourself about just reflecting on like where you're at, what you need to improve on, just what is your process like that keeps you connected, keeps you ignited within, and keeps you on point so that you could keep growing even when the program might really weigh down the energy that you have to dedicate towards the actual becoming a chiropractor part.
Yeah, so for me personally, I mean, shit, till right now, I've probably been to close to 14, 15-ish seminars. So that's another big thing too that I always tell people. It's like schools will always give you like a baseline like blueprint of like this is what chiropractic is, this is where you can take it. But it's really like when you go to seminars, that's where you get to see a lot of, especially when you start to find your niche of like what kind of technique you like, what's your style and everything like that. Going to these seminars is truly what like really where you see things you're like that are truly inspiring. You're like, man, like these are very successful, still practicing dogs that care about the profession. They want to impact students. And so they go around and they do these seminars. So for me, yeah, I always made sure. So backtracking a little bit, I was involved with Kairos training culture. So a lot of the videos I would see is of Dr. Brett Jones adjusting, Dr. Darren Murphy adjusting, Dr. Jordan Bonham. So I would, other than YouTube, I would always kind of go back to my seminar notes. So to answer your question, yeah, when I would go to these seminars, they would always do like a flow at the end of like them adjusting. And I would always, like go back and I would like, I'm a huge person like studying how docs adjust because I'm like, okay, like they're bigger. Some docs are really big. They got really big hands, or just different people, right? So I would always like slow down the video, and that was my way of studying. I'm a very visual learner, so I would always go back to my seminar notes, whether it was a voice recording from it, whether it was just notes that I took on the iPad, or just the adjusting video. So I would always go back to that. I would say by far the YouTube videos because it still allows me to slow down and really see some adjusting. And then also going back to my seminar notes, I still have seminars from, for example, one of my biggest mentors, Dr. Paul Feely. I still have a lot of his notes from the very first samurai seminar that I went to. So I would always make sure to kind of just go and read it over and over again because it's almost hard. It's almost impossible to really retain. all everything that you witnessed and kind of like got exposed to in a whole weekend's worth, and then it's almost impossible for it all just to stick. So I would always, yeah, just go back to my notes, go back to videos, go on YouTube, go on Instagram, and that was, yeah, that was my thing. Honestly, just those two. Those were my two main ones for sure. That, and
Mm-hmm.
also I started to even just pull out like an anatomy book and just really just start to get familiar almost also with like the muscles, the ligaments, tendons, and just like the overall structure of the spine as well. Because it also allowed me to get a more of a visualization of like, okay, like I'm adjusting this in this format because of the way the muscle lines here. So it was really just like kind of just I'm a huge visual learner. So for me, I was always doing one of those three.
Mm-hmm. Can you tease out some more of the details? It's all about the details of the observations that you make when you're watching an adjuster, all the things that you're looking at, and then tease out all the details that you could reflect back on that you got exposure to in Dr. Paul's seminar that kept you having to go back over and over and over again to refine and crystallize that information in your mind.
Yeah, so when it came to actually like the studying of the videos themselves, what I would always pay attention to is like, okay, like how's their hand position, how's their body position. Out of everyone that I know that I truly I consider one of my mentors or that I follow them, a lot of like for example, their biomechanics are very well, right? None of them are really like hunched forward and they're like in a really poor posture. So I'm always paying attention to like, okay, what is the doc's posture? What's their contact? What is it that they're doing? Like why is it that they're bringing the foot up on the table? Is it to take out slack from the cervical spine when they're going to adjust? Are they going to, so every little like nitpick thing, and I still do it till now. And it's really just like, and it's for example, when as soon as like they would do an actual impulse, for example, in the cervical spine, I would literally just like go back and forth in slow mo, just 'cause I'm trying to like see like what is the vector that they're going for. So it's really just trying to like fine tune all these little details and then just kind of and then just even ask myself the questions in my head like, oh well, why are they doing that? It could be because of this, because of that. And then when I would go and practice and do setups, I'd be like, oh okay, like maybe that's why. And then it just gives you your own like time to do your own exploring. That's what I always tell people. Chiropractic is such a beautiful profession because there's never a this is the way to do it or this is there's never a the way to do it. There's always a way to do it, and that's what the beauty of it is because there's so many techniques and they're all super potent and they all work in their own way. So I was always big on, okay, how can I do my own exploring, come up with my own brand, my own way of adjusting? Because I started to realize the more I try to compare myself to another adjuster, I'm like, I'm either going to plateau or I can't adjust like you. Like I don't have really big hands. I can't contact C7 with maintaining a thumb on someone's cheek either, right? Like it's just like, okay, how can I start to fine tune different things that works for me and my body? And then for Dr. Paul's seminar, one huge thing. I always tell him all the time that like, man, being a rep for that seminar truly like changed my life in the sense that it allowed him and I to be in a lot of contact. So he's by far like my biggest mentor now. And what I loved about his seminar was he did bring a lot of the adjusting component to it and adjusting from ease and all that stuff that I truly love in the art. And to see him adjust, it's absolutely beautiful to watch. But what I really appreciated was how much he hits hard on the business and the communication part of it. And I took so many notes on that because I was like, it's so true. You could be a phenomenal adjuster, but if you can't truly connect with somebody and know how to talk what chiropractic is and just be like a very likable person, it's going to be tough for you when you're trying to be successful because it's something's going to take a hit somewhere. So I always appreciated his art business and communication talks because I was like, man, like it's true. You can't have one without the other. So really being able to like fine tune or just really be able to like start to think in my head, okay, like what if there's a kid on the table? How do I communicate chiropractic to them if it's a older patient, whatever it is? I'm like, okay, how can I communicate it to them? And then really just kind of being like, he gave me a huge just he planted a big seed in my head, like, okay, like his whole thing was like very empowering. He was very empowering to students, like, yo, like you can do this if you work hard and it's gonna be tough in the beginning, but if you can truly just bet on yourself and trust the process, like things will play out for you. So it allowed me to like, okay, like so even right now, it's like I'm working on the logo for the practice I want to open up with my girlfriend when we're out of school soon. And it's just like, okay, doing that, starting to get like the domain for the website. So he really opened my eyes to like, yo, like the time is now. Don't wait till later. So that's one of the huge things, the biggest takeaways from Samurai for sure from his seminar.
Yeah, keep going with that because the logo, to be completely honest with you, is going to change over the years. And it's actually somebody really intelligent and told me don't spend more than $30 or 30 minutes on your logo.
Yeah.
But that was more about rapid implementation. If you're doing something that's taking you 3 years to get to a point where you're ready to open your own practice, then obviously it means more to you, but he was more just about like take action, and this is how
Yeah.
you can build a website in a weekend, and he was
Hmm.
placing the logo as the lowest priority. But I'm just curious, what are some other things you learned in that seminar that you opened your eyes to, that you've done further research on, and what types of further research are you doing? Like, obviously, the seminars plant the seeds and then you keep going. Also, speak about that mentorship relationship.
So for me, it's really from that seminar, it allowed me to, like you said, like for the logo, for example, like I think I just ended up doing, I just got like a free trial from a website. I think it's called Canva, and they have amazing things you can do on there. And then literally, because my girlfriend and I are planning to open up together, so we were literally just kind of like she had her own template, I had mine, and we came up with it. And it took like a few days or maybe like a week or so, but because we weren't working on it, we were like a little bit like, bro, I don't know, like 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes every night randomly. And then recently, this past week we finally got it, and we were like, "Oh, this is it!" And boom, we didn't even second think. We were like, "It's there. We'll keep that." But with that seminar, it allowed me to be like, okay, like for example, I recently went out to Orlando, right? Because it's a huge area that I'm thinking about targeting is the Central Florida area. So even just going over there and just like looking up different chiropractors around the area, like what are their price ranges? Like what is this guy's price? What is this guy's price? How do they practice? What's gonna help make my practice like different than every other chiropractor you see around the area? Like how's ours gonna stand out essentially? So it allowed me it opened my eyes to be like, okay, like just to do research on like what are all like the practices around the area and what's their style too, because everyone has their own niche. But what are you gonna do to essentially make yourself stand out away from everybody else? So it allowed me to do that and just honestly just really just doing research, for example, on the domains. Like, what is that? Because some people don't even know that. Like, if you want to, like, I don't know, open up, let's just say, I don't know, just a random name, like Evolution Chiropractic, right? Like some people be like, oh, it's just easy, but I guarantee you, Evolution Chiropractic is probably already taken somewhere that domain and that URL, the URL is taken, right? So just kind of getting a head start of like, okay, like what are some of these things that I can start prepping right now to help me in the future to be like, okay, this is what can I do right now as a student to so when I do plan on opening when I'm done, like, okay, this is going to be the next steps I have to take. I always tell people too, don't ever rush it either in the sense that like it's all gonna come and it's gonna come in its own way. But the more I think you try to like just like okay, I gotta get this done right now and I gotta do the website, I gotta do the logo, like, it's just like it's all gonna come. Like you don't have to spend forever on it, but also just really just take the time to like implement some time strictly to that and then go to somewhere else and then do that and then go somewhere else. But it was really just about like really just visualizing like how I want to run the practice. What's it gonna look like? So I do a lot of even like meditations every day where I truly just get in my head. I'm like, and I start to picture in my mind, what do I want the walls to look like? How do I want the windows to be? What's going to be like the atmosphere of the practice? So I started to do a lot of that. But yeah, I would say the biggest thing was truly just doing research on all the chiropractors around the area and then being like, okay, like this is what they do, this is what they do, this is their price. Like now this is what I'm going to do to kind of stand out. Um, and my mentorship with him, man, it's crazy. We probably talk like a couple times every week, just randomly. I'll just shoot him a text or something, either just to roast him or just just to talk about something randomly. The guy's my homie, but yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome because I would say, and I have other mentors for sure, but for some reason I clicked so well with Paul because he really planted that seed of like, yo, like you can do this. Like, could you get some benefit from working under another doc? 100%. He never like talks down on people that want to do an associate or anything like that or independent contract. He's like, look, he's just like, you can really just do it yourself. Just know that if you put in the work now and you start to separate yourself from right now, it's gonna lead you exactly where you need to be post graduation. So for him, man, yeah, it was just a lot of he's a very empowering, very encouraging person too. He's always like, yo, you got this, just do this. And he's kind of just giving me like little tips and here and there. And it's just like that relationship we have. I know that if I ever need a random question, whether it's a technique question or a question like, hey, where did you do for this? He's really quick to respond and be there for me. So yeah, he's been the homie for sure. And then one of my brothers, so yeah, he's been super helpful.
No, it's definitely a big deal to have somebody that could support you, somebody that
Yeah.
could speak the same language as you and connect on the same tone. There's so much to be said about a lack of diversity in the leadership in our profession and how people from your background and your age group need more people like Dr. Paul. who share similar interests, maybe have similar experiences growing up, or just can speak a language that's a little bit more at your, you know, at your level. I mean, just to connect. We talk about how his seminar teaches people how to take care of other people, connect with them where they're at, and this and that. But it's we need that too in chiropractic education. Can you reflect now on like your chiropractic education and maybe the lack of that, or maybe the abundance of that at the
Yeah.
school, and also just speak about like kind of the culture that you came from and how you bring that into the school and whether or not you see a lot of that around you.
Yeah. So okay, so when it comes to like specifically the program here at Palmer, Florida, I would say that they do they do very, very well when it comes to like prepping you for boards and then prepping you, for they do very well at like teaching you like the anatomy, teaching you a lot of the science, the physiology behind just the human body, what chiropractic is. Um, but what I've noticed so far, I mean, I'm in quarter 10 right now, so I'm getting towards like more of my business classes. One thing I have noticed is that a lot of docs there and professors they're not so quick to mention like that very like like that very empowering component of like, yo, like you can truly do this right off the jump if you put your mind to it, and this is like a mild blueprint of what you could do. I hear typically one of the things that I hear at school here is like, oh well, you need to work under somebody for like 5 years to kind of to then be successful and blah blah blah. So I'm kind of just like, there's like it's ups and downs always, right? It's not like not it's not like the program is perfect, but they do very well at helping you and giving you just a very baseline blueprint and average of like, okay, like this is what you need to do, and they give you a lot of like stuff to when it comes to opening up a practice and things like that. But I would say that when it comes to truly like this is what you have to do, this is some of the shit you're gonna have to go through in the actual in real world scenarios. You don't really get, at least me so far. I haven't really been exposed to that too much. A lot of it's more like, hey, like go work and learn under somebody. And I'm not saying that you can't do that because there's a lot of potency and there's a lot of like positive things that come out of that. But when it comes to school, yeah, there's definitely it's interesting. It's such a like up and down too. Like there's people that like are set on, I'm gonna be an associate for a while, make some money, and then go about it that way. And then you have a lot of people saying, I'm gonna do independent contracting, and or you have others that are gonna team up and be like, no, we're gonna open up right off the jump. So as of right now, I'm like I said, I'm kind of just now flowing into like my business oriented courses. So I'm kind of getting more exposed to that as we talk. But I would say that when it comes to the program itself, they do very, very well at, yes, teaching you the science behind everything and the anatomy and why it is that we're doing things, what's going on, what happens after an adjustment, so on and so forth. And when it comes to the adjusting component too, like I always tell people, Palmer will give you a lot of the nice, like I always tell people, if you were to only do like that based like that Palmer package style, you'll be a great like average chiropractor in the sense that, but when you truly if you truly want to like become a very skillful, artful kind of doc, truly start to expose yourself to other techniques, multiple ones, and go to these seminars that you get to learn from people that are still in practice. Their practices are booming and they're just really doing this for just the love of the game and the love of chiropractic to be able to show us students. And a little bit from my background, I mean, it's like I'm minority, fully Hispanic. I come from like a family that isn't, we weren't like poor or anything like that, but we also weren't very, very super, super well off. So I kind of like, I've seen at moments in my life, like kind of like my parents struggle and a lot of like my inner circle kind of struggle as well. And some didn't, but it always just taught me to like, man, like if you can just put your head down and truly bet on yourself and believe in yourself and know that you can just take it to whatever level you want to truly take it, then you can do that. You're going to take a lot of L's from time to time, but if you just continue to bet on yourself, you'll get there. So I bring a lot of that with me, just day to day life. I always try to wake up early and just get a workout in. I'm just very like, man, I'm like always like pushing, pushing, pushing. I heard a quote recently from Dr. Darren Murphy, and it's been stuck in my head for a while, and it was good. And he said, use your weekends to build the life you want, not run from the one that you have. And I was like, oh man, that's good, because I think a lot of people, when it comes to when they're in school, when it comes to like their downtime, they just want to kind of like kick back, relax, and be like, all right, I just want to like lay down and chill. But for me, I'm like, man, like I have such a like, I write it down all the time. Like these are my goals. This is like the vision that I have for me and my family. Like I always tell Paul, I'm like, bro, I want to set my family name up forever. Like I want to look at my parents and be like, yo, you never have to work another day in your life, right? Like you're good. Like I got you. because they did that for me essentially growing up. So I bring a lot of that from where I come from, especially being born in Honduras, and I've gone back there a couple of times to just see like what life could truly be, and even in a different country. And that's why eventually, like I'm planning to like run my own seminars and go to a lot of countries, Spanish speaking only countries that don't have that same accessibility to not only chiropractic, but really be able to get it taught in a way that will truly empower them and benefit them to the best of their ability for sure.
That's dope. That's dope. You know, I went to Honduras. I took a semester off in school, went to Honduras, and then as soon as I graduated, I went to Honduras, and within that first week after graduation, it was amazing what I was able to accomplish.
Wow.
Just being in Honduras, I think I was there for 7 weeks. Did
Mm.
one of the most empowering things in my whole life. I used my ability to carry my chiropractic table up and down the street, offering adjustments, making connections. Within a couple of days, I had one connection that I got 2 days before my flight out there. I was going out there with no connection except for a friend, but he wasn't a chiropractor. And then I got a connection through a chiropractor to have housing for the first
Hmm.
week I was there. That person who gave me housing put me in contact with the lady who had the community clinic. I got a space out of that community clinic that I could serve on a donation, box on the wall vibes. I was able to give a talk to everybody working at that community clinic, all the doctors that were in residency and the nurses. And I would be there on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They were delivering babies out of the same room that I was adjusting out of, which
Wow.
had two signs. One said amor and the other one said love.
Hmm.
And within 2 weeks, I was able to meet somebody that I adjusted out of that clinic, get some housing, and they gave me like my own little cabana that they had that wasn't being used. And then within 3 weeks, I met up with the only educated person in the poorest community in the island.
Hmm.
And I told her that I wanted to create something. I didn't know exactly what it was. And after talking with her, she was telling me about how, because this was on an island of Roatan, that they were becoming dependent on the mainland and they were losing their culture at the same time. They were starting to teach Spanish, whereas this community they were Garifuna, so they relied more on their native language. And a lot of the elders were passing away. In the 90s, HIV/AIDS wiped out the whole male generation of adults, and how she was just concerned that her community was slowly losing their identity. And she was the only college educated in the U.S. person in her community, and she actually studied like corporate wellness, which is
Mm.
amazing.
Yeah.
So I teamed up with her and the historian in the village to create a community event that was 3 days long. We had about 4 weeks to plan it, where I had to speak in front of a community, with translations, but also in Spanish, not
Hmm.
in English, and that's not my native language. But within 4 weeks, I was able to go on the radio, I was able to go on TV, and attract enough attention through my continuous work in that community clinic with the people that could afford and heard that there was a chiropractor working there and could afford to come and give me some money, that I was able to like raise 80 trees to be donated.
Wow.
And the plan was that we were going to create a event that illustrated the lifestyle of the community of the culture, so that we could put it on a DVD and share it with the future generation, so that they wouldn't lose their language, they wouldn't lose the storytelling, and that we could capture all of the traditional practices. So I mean, that weekend we did so many things, from like a 16-step cassave baking demonstration, to the boat races in the
Mhm.
ocean with these little wooden boats, to a plat pole, which is this huge 25-foot pole that has these strings coming down in every
Mhm.
360 degrees, and everybody dances around it, to the dances, the traditional dances like mascaro, and we had like the whole dance circle with the drums, and then they did a play where they reenacted Joseph Satouye coming to the island, and we filmed all of this, and then we planted
That's
like
amazing.
80 trees, me and the patronato, and then all these community kids. We literally, in the build up to the weekend, we went and cleared out a bunch of brush, and we were planting mad trees to feed the community. And sad
That's
to
amazing.
say that that footage was lost. Finally, all the elders in the community prepared something that they don't normally prepare that takes more effort. But you know, like atol, which is like an oatmeal, a porridge,
Hmm.
and a number of other dishes. And then we had the local wood carver, like with all his wood carvings that's in the house. So we filmed all of this, and it was so beautiful. And they lost the footage, and it was like heartbreaking to me. And part of it had me thinking that it was because I was this white boy, and they didn't know what I was going to do with the footage.
Hmm.
But at the other end of the spectrum, by the way, I hired a bus. I chartered a bus to bring over like 30 foreigners from the rich side of the island to that weekend festival to spend money and spread money throughout the community. And like this community, they bring the tour buses from the cruise ships there all the time, but they don't really have anything to sell. They just
Yeah.
demonstrate
Hmm.
like some basic stuff, but giving them a place to empower them, you know, the whole community to like get together and really build a business. That was the mindset I had right out of chiropractic school to see that these people are not adapting, they're not reaching their potential like they
Hmm.
could if they were just shown, if the obstructions and the interferences in their consciousness were removed, you know, that and that's the beauty of becoming a chiropractor, that you have this understanding when you enter a new community, where are the obstructions that are blocking people from connecting with one another or resources, you know. So it's such a bigger deal to have that mindset that you have right now. I just wanted to touch on that just because
That's amazing. Yeah.
it was like just something that I
You
wanted
spent
to
more
share.
time in Honduras than I have. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, they're ready for it. You know,
Yeah.
culturally speaking, can you kind of
Oh
just
yeah.
reflect on the culture you came up in and how really, you know, whether it's in the church or in spiritual communities or just the way that people approach like body healing with herbs or with prayer or with meditation or even with like sobadores, like, can you kind of just reflect on, yeah, just how primed that Latin American community is to chiropractic?
Yeah. So man, so for me personally, the actual like culture of especially of like of that Latin America, especially like in Honduras, because I was born there, but I had moved here when I was about 2 years old to Fort Lauderdale. I kind of never really on to be completely honest with you, I never was really too much like exposed to it in my household, only because we were just it was so like Americanized at that point. My dad is from Cuba, and so for me growing up, I was already in a household of a lot of just like you know, just your typical American kind of Americanized Hispanic culture. I would say though, when in my family, when it comes to the culture itself, I was definitely really exposed more than anything. Just more of just like the food and more of just like you said, like the dances. Of one of their biggest things is called like punta. So I got like a huge exposure to that. But when it came to the actual like powers of like healing and like people that do like a lot of like healing work in Honduras, I still the only thing as of right now that have been, I guess, exposed of that I know of is one of my uncles. He lives out in the mountains over there, and he helps treat a lot of different conditions and diseases with like all natural remedies, a whole bunch of tea, and he sometimes even makes it himself out there. And forgot that I'm blanking on the doc's name. Is it Siba, Doctor
Dr. Sebi. Yeah, I was
Sebi?
with him,
Sebi.
or I was in his house before I went and did this mission.
Oh, that's super dope. That's amazing because you hear some of his healing stories and some of the stuff that he did for others, and you're like, wow, like how's that even possible, right? So yeah, one of my uncles over there out in the mountains, he's very big into just like all natural ways of healing. Big on big on herbs and teas. But in my family as well, it's interesting because like even till this day, when it comes to like the actual chiropractic profession, I'm truly not sure how much other cultures, like especially Hispanic cultures in Central America, are even like aware of what chiropractic is and what's like the potency that it can do. Because even in my family, like I still at times like a lot of my friends and like family like, oh, like yo, like I just want you to crack my back, like just get me out of this pain. I'm just like, yo, I got you. That's like the easy stuff though, right? Especially when you start talking about like truly connecting to someone. If you're a spiritual person, how you can like do some energetic spiritual work with people, how you connect with them, how do you, just truly help someone become the best version of themselves. I always tell people, man, the back pain, neck pain, that's kind of just like the standard, right? Like that's the easy, quote unquote, easy stuff, right? Um, so I think as of now, especially with my parents seeing like my journey of who I've become now, especially now, it's they start to ask me a lot more questions now, and it's really amazing to see. They're like, oh, 'cause I always tell them like, look, like you can really take chiropractic this far if you truly like this is where it can go. And so it's really interesting to see them. And I've been a huge, I think, like catalyst in my family's and friends' life when it comes to like all natural healing and like how your body is so can truly you always hear it, right? Chiropractic school, like the part that made the body heals the body. And I truly believe that, especially because growing up, a huge thing in my family and our culture was like Christianity. My parents are big Christians, so I was always raised in a household of believing in much more than just like the physical reality and physical realm of what we see and feel every day, right? And what's interesting, a quick little story was that my mom, she never told me this until like shit, probably like a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I was already in chiropractic school. But she was like, "Yo, when you were," she told me a story that like when I was born, she kind of just felt like this like inner gut feeling. She's like, "I knew that you were gonna be able to like tap into a lot of like the like spirit." Oh, yeah, I like to say the word energy, but she was. I knew that you were gonna be able to tap into a lot of the spiritual realm of things, and I knew that you were gonna live a life and have a future like profession, like helping people with your hands. I never knew what it was, but it was just she's like I couldn't even explain to you like when literally she's like when your brother was born, I had a different feeling with him. I knew that he was gonna go on and do amazing things, but for you in particular, I always knew that you're gonna be more connected and being able to like kind of like facilitate healing with your hands. And it's amazing for me to hear that now. 22, 20, I'm 26 now, but at the time that she told me that I was 23, about to turn 24. And I was like, you just now told me this when I'm in chiropractic school. But it was really interesting though, especially growing up in a family that was always a very spiritual religious family. So I feel like I was always kind of like in that field of like, okay, there's much more than this physical body and physical things that we always see. So then when I got into chiropractic school, it was awesome to see a lot of like the innate intelligence that they speak about and kind of just tie it all together and then just kind of like whatever and all kind of like how it resonates with me. And that's how I kind of like go about it in my everyday life and how I even communicate that with people. So it's been definitely been an amazing journey.
Have you been on any mission trips yet? I'm curious.
I have not, and that's been a bucket list on it's on my list of things to do. I know recently, as of right now, I'm not sure it could change, but I'm almost set for sure. I'm pretty much set on it. Is I'm gonna go preceptor with Dr. Katina Manning out in Duxbury, Massachusetts, January, February, and March of next year. Because I went to shadow her, and her work is, I mean, I know you know who she is, so how could you not know who Dr. Katina Manning is in the chiropractic profession? She is, yeah, absolutely out of this world with some of the healing work that she does. So I know she's gonna do potentially a Nicaragua mission trip at the end of that preceptorship. So I'm thinking about probably heading out that way with her. But I have friends that have done the Haiti mission trip, the one with John Martinez, another amazing dude. I've been to a few of his Numa seminars, and I hear amazing things about mission trips. But I actually personally wanted to eventually set one up with my uncle in Honduras because I was like, yo, the number one thing that I want to do one day is go out to the mountains, go out to like those small villages and towns in Honduras and just give back, just set up the table and like really just I think the world needs to, especially right now, the world needs more of like this holistic natural healing because you always I feel like everyone right now is just tired of the bickering back and forth like no you're right or I'm right you're wrong and all these things. So I think it's right now more than ever, the whole world needs to be more exposed about like what's the potency of chiropractic and how you can really just take it so far and just the beauty of just the human body and the all natural way of living and healing and what that can do for you and your family. So I think that's what the world needs. So it's something I'm definitely
No
curious
doubt.
about. And I'm gonna be I'll do it soon for sure.
No doubt. I'm gonna just kick some game real quick. Basically, I went on that mission trip with John when we were students to Mexico. Uh,
Nice.
as students, no facilitators,
Mm-hmm.
showing up in Malinalco, ready to just serve the people with our tables. And, the world provides for you when you have a clear vision of what you're there for and a clear
Yeah.
purpose. And I showed up in Honduras with no other chiropractors, just a friend of mine, and literally just organically started to grow and build. And there's something about like how special that moment is that you're in right now where you're ready to adjust somebody to serve somebody. You can literally adjust probably amazingly right now. Your speed, your specificity, your
Mhm.
focus, your mindset, your your sort of ease and touch and the finesse that you have is also really dynamic. When you go to a town in Latin America, you can literally walk up into the radio station and be like, "Hey, I'm here from America and I just want to share a message," and they'll let you get on the mic. I walked up into the television studio in Honduras, national TV, and was like, "Hey, I'm here. Can I get on the TV?" And they were like, "Sure," like because we were actually promoting something different, but I slipped in some funny things about
Yeah.
why I was there. But what I want to say is just trust and believe in yourself that if you one day, you shared with me your vision, which is one day to go to Latin America and tour and teach chiropractors or chiropractic students in different parts, like the best way for you to like start to move in that direction is right now as a student to go to a place with your table, maybe your girlfriend, maybe some other friends of yours that are Spanish speaking, roll up, meet with the patronato or the president of the pueblo or of the town and say, hey, we would love to serve the community for free or by donation in the community center. Can you give us access to the space?
Hmm.
And I went there with my girlfriend at the time, right when we got out of school to Colombia. And we went on an 8-week tour around Colombia with our tables, just the two of us. And we would go to a town and literally just go to the leader, be clear what you're here for, have a one-page description of what chiropractic is, so that you can really quickly just come off professional and with a clear
Yeah.
purpose. You said that you were Christian. So many people go on these missions where they're literally just going out into the world on a mission with a message and with a purpose, and they just get all this experience from that. So you can't replace that experience. It is phenomenal how sort of raw you are in form right now before you start making money and start really like having a family and having more and more responsibility that you take on. Like just go. I just gotta push you to just
Yeah.
go because like let's be real, you are not the average chiropractic student. You've worked hard all through chiropractic school to get to where you're at, and you have now, because of that hard work, the ability to go somewhere, show up, connect, correct, collect,
Yeah.
keep it pushing, make it happen. I'm just putting it out there to you.
No, for
Um,
sure.
you
Appreciate
know,
that.
like we set up in front of a church with like nosotros or somos quiroprácticos ofrecemos nuestro servicio, uh, para gratis. And we, within 2 days, had a line down the block because
Hmm.
we were in front of the most popular church in Mexico or in that state of Mexico.
Yeah.
Me and John and Marianne, and like just three students with a line, 2 blocks long.
Just doing it up. Yeah, that's why I'm like, man, I need to do it. I want to do it like soon because just like you said, it's just, especially once like the ball gets rolling with like opening up a practice, there's gonna be a moment in time where I can't just dip out like that. So that's definitely something that I've been trying to plan out by I truly want to do them by the end of this year. And I'm looking at maybe the Mexico one with John and in the December one, or if not, for sure going to Katina Manning's out in Nicaragua. But I was like, man, I need to do this.
But just putting it out there, we need
Yeah.
more chiropractors that are willing to go out on their own with the support of others, of course, but
Yeah.
not be under. It's kind of like an associateship service trip
True.
when you go with somebody who's already got it all set up for you, as
Yeah.
opposed to that organic, like, let's go on a vacation with our tables and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and how can we really impact and serve this community? Like just like, yeah, just showing up and yeah, that's I didn't think about it that way. So I'm glad you put that in my field because I've always been like, oh, well, I gotta go under somebody, but it's just like, so thank you for that.
No doubt, bro. You already know. I don't know how much Paul's told you that he's been rocking with me, but do you know me and Paul's relationship or not really?
He hasn't told me in detail. He just told me that you guys are just like you guys are just homies and you guys have been together for a while. Like have known of
Yeah.
each other, but not much more.
It's all good. I just, I went up to Paul when he was taking a tour of the school. I went up to Brett when he was taking a tour of the school. I had my orientation starting school with John. So, I
Mm,
kind of been there. I met Darren before he started school because he moved in with my boy. The first weekend that I was coming back from Honduras, they were throwing a party to celebrate me coming back from Honduras. Darren had just moved in that day to my boy's house, so I met
Awesome.
him, before he started. So, um, just letting you know the origin and the roots. It's so interesting. You'll see, like, you got some friends that you've made in chiropractic school. You're gonna look back and be like, damn, like I'm doing my thing, she's doing her thing, he's doing his
Mhm.
thing, and we all met in chiropractic school. And
Yeah,
now, like, why don't more chiropractic students like rock it like we are? Like, whether it's
yeah.
creating seminars or creating companies or going on service trips and telling stories, like that's why I invited you on here, because I know that you had something to share, and I'm also catching you really early. I feel like more students need the opportunity to come on platforms like this and share where they're at, because it's gonna be fun for you to look back and be like, yo,
Like
look at
that's all
me.
the shit that we did, right? That's for it. Yeah. And it's in and even now it's flown by so fast. And just like you said, I'm curious to see like in the future, like, damn, I remember him, he's out there. And like it's gonna be amazing to see like what kind of communities and what kind of population of people all of us are gonna be touching in different ways and in different just in different places all around the world and the country and everything. So yeah, it's exciting to think about because realistically, I'm in full time clinic right now, and essentially now it's like all of our classes are pass fail after quarter nine. So I'm in Q10 now. By next week, I have one final, and other than that, I'll be done essentially. I have my boards next weekend, part two, and then after that, I'll have like a break, and then once you're in clinic full time, it's just like time is just going, going, going. So I'm like, man, like it's crazy how almost what 2.5 years have just flown by the way they have, especially.
Can you
But
can you the way that I'm contextualizing the education that I'm trying to bring forth is, there's a shift between you being a Chiro student to you becoming a student Chiro. Can you talk about what that was like for you, where you started transitioning and changing your identity to now, like, hey, I'm a chiropractor uh, in clinic, from I'm a student at the school?
yeah, so for it was interesting. It was for me, it was like from the all right, so there's like a quick little backstory. For me, it's when I got into chiropractic school, I think it was like quarter one. Like as it started, I always knew that I was like, yo, I want to be like a badass adjuster, right? I want to be like the best of my class. So it's funny, like I always set that intention like there, like I want to be the best adjuster. I think I said at the school just because I was like, yo, let me just set high, like why not just go above and beyond, right? Just keep working. So when I did like the Kairos training, I was a facilitator with them for about 2 years with the club, meeting every day at 5:30 a.m. and everything. And then it wasn't until I think it was interesting. It was around quarter. It was honestly it was after I took part one boards. Once I took part one boards, leading up to that time, and this is like the biggest thing I always tell all students, I was like, yo, like if you can get really, really well at the art and the adjusting itself, because like we have too many, in my opinion, like flying seven style doctors in this world of chiropractic. So I was always like, yo, if you can really just at the end of the day, when it comes to your classes, I always tell people pass those classes. You know what I mean? Pass those and then get through all your stuff. But if you can really do things that can set you up to be different than everybody else once you're out in practice, for me, it's like adjusting. Like, how is your art going to be totally different? Because you can tell, right? Like when you go to someone who just wants to just rack, kind of like ring you out and just crack different joints. Okay, that's cool. But when you actually go to someone who can take the time to connect with you and they perform an adjustment and your eyes glow up and you're like, what the fuck was that? Like that's something you're like, man, like that was potent, that was deep. And I've had those experiences for sure at seminars, being able to do that for other people. So I'm like, damn. So it wasn't until after once part one boards ended, I was like, okay, quarter clinic is just around the corner. And I kept telling myself, like, yo, like all those mornings of waking up early, all those strikes, all those different everything that I did to train to that moment, I was just like, once I got that pass for Q1, I was like, okay, it's go time. Like, let me get through these next quarter eight, quarter nine. And then I knew I was like, yo, when clinic comes, like I'm not gonna be that student that that student intern in clinic that's having trouble like adjusting people who like can't get things to you know what I'm saying like can't get the ball rolling because you see that a lot in the program is essentially you get and that's why I always tell people don't get too caught up in the classes. Sometimes people kind of get so like I need to get straight A's in these courses and I need to like so they put all their time and devotion to the classes and then the art and then the adjustment itself just like it becomes very like very 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 surface level. So I knew myself after passing part one, I was like, yo, I put in the work. Once I'm in clinic, like I'm ready to serve the community here of Volusia County and Port Orange and everything like that. And I was like, we're gonna get it rocking. from when we go. So the actual like transition itself, man, for me it was smooth. I had an amazing experience. Um, and in clinic here, it's been good. We have two clinics, and the one that I have is a little bit smaller, but it's a little bit more intimate, which is why I like it. But it's been awesome. For me personally, it was a very smooth like transition. I was already like confident with the adjusting. For me, it was getting more of like in the rhythm of like taking patient histories, really asking the right proper question, knowing when like is an X-ray, for example, and like should it be taken on this patient? And for me, it was more of like the diagnosing, I guess, factor you could say, where it was like, okay, how am I gonna now put that doctor ability into like helping? Cause it's different when you're like treating people's very healthy student spines, and then when you got someone who's a lot older and they actually have real problems going on, like, okay, how can you still connect and deliver a powerful adjustment that's honoring to them while also not hurting them, but also like, being able to kind of bring that to the table when needed. So for me, yeah, once part one was over, that transition was just like, okay, I knew that I was like about to be in clinic soon within the next 5 6 months after part one board, and I was like, all right, we're ready now. So that it was smooth. And I always tell people, I was like, yo, even if you don't put in that much time into adjusting, I was like, once you take part one, truly devote a lot of time into training that art and that art of the adjustment, because when clinic does come in quick and you are going to get patients thrown at you, and like you want to be able to truly impact people. And I'm getting to see that now. Like I'm creating care plans and I'm really like in it with patients right now and seeing like their progress has been amazing. So
Hmm.
yeah,
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on this podcast and sharing your
thank you, bro.
insights with the students out there. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing what your future brings, and it's going to be exciting for you, man. It's right around the corner.
I know. Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me. If I'm ever out there in Oakland, I'll give you a holler for sure.